Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is so good to be here with you once again. We continue today our discussion based on the book Adolescence and Life. And it is with honor, with a bit of trepidation, if I am honest with myself, that I'm here. So, for those of you who have not understand or read or come to really uh, read about what we're discussing today, well, we're back to discuss in about five more times the book by spiritual author Joanna de Angelis, Adolescence and Life, as I mentioned. The book is quite small. It's something that I've grown accustomed to Joanna de Angelis, but extremely dense, right? And it is also an invitation to you, to me, to all parents and educators. And it is clear to me as I identify myself as a parent and as a Christian spiritist that there is this urgency for us to come here and discuss this subject. It behooves us all to understand what is my role, what is your role, what are our responsibilities as such, as parents, as citizens, as educators, right? No matter if you are currently a parent or if you are a teenager, what do we need to do? And this responsibility really is all about our life on Earth, this planet that welcomes us all. And it is something that is so critical because this newer generation owns this planet. So, back to the book. There are a total of 25 chapters in this book, and they have a wide range of themes from teenage sexuality to the identity crisis of 18, and it goes as dark as questions around suicide. Our goal is to leverage the book and to confront head on the challenges we experience while we raise our young. So, if we go to our next page, and I'm going to do this now, um, sorry, let me go ahead and spend a moment here. We're going to today discuss, introduce, if you will, the idea of adolescence. What is this middle period of our lives, right? It's a transitional period, and also brings so many conflicts, inner conflicts. So we'll talk a little bit about it. We're going to move on to the longest, I believe, or the densest part of today's discussion, which is all about sexuality. And then we move on to plans, our existential project that is life itself, how teenagers are inserted within a family. What does it mean? And finally, we wrap up real quickly with quick discussion on adolescence and our search. I put myself in that, our search of identity and idealism. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that as we go through the next slide. And the slide here is just as a visual. So very important. When we start talk about adolescence as this period of transition conflict, and it is truly a period that is characterized by your physical developments, right? You're talking about the physicality, the biology of our bodies, as well as your psychological developments. All that is part of our emotional development. And I come to term, right? Hmm. Let's talk about what is it. What does it really happen to our bodies during this time? Um, Among other things, the specialization of the secondary sexual organs are done, right? And it's all about getting that teenager, boy or girl, to be able to reproduce in a few years. In other words, menstrual cycle, the presence of spermatozoa in the seminal fluid. Yes, your voice changes. For boys, we get a very different voice as well as girls. For the female adolescent, presence of breasts, etc. So lots and lots of changes, not only in height, sometimes we see where a part of our body seems to be growing faster than the others, right? So I may have we have a facial hair, dark voice, but very young body, or the other times we just have like longer, it feels like our arms are just too long. We're growing too fast for our own realization or how we feel comfortable. So all of this brings us a sense of discomfort and this unawareness. Who am I? What am I doing here? In any ways, those physical changes is fast, is just uncomfortable, it is disoriented, yet the other stuff is what is most difficult to manage. Yeah, feelings of affection that you did not even know it existed. And those feelings are so strong, and often they mix with sexual desire. So today I have I don't know, a primary school, or for some countries, a kindergarten friend, and all of a sudden several years later I just start to have feelings that I did not even know existed. Um, those feelings of affection, those sexual or not desires for that person, also prompts feelings of insecurity. I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't have years of experience being who I am right now. I am insecure. I am afraid. I have anxiety. I suffer that, as well as in many cases, a sense of shyness. That's a second guessing yourself. Those are indeed very, very uncomfortable changes, and they lead to that psychological space that will prompt good things. What am I talking about? The development and the definition of our personalities. Okay, I'm saying our, me, you. When we were teenagers, I'm no longer that, but me and you, as anyone who's listened to this, who is at that point in their lives. So all of those changes, uncomfortable as they also pave the way to our inclinations and aptitudes. So this is key for us to understand, because that is the time when we're getting ready to go to college for many young adults, right? That's the time when they start to think about what they want to do with their lives, all of it. So it is they go very hand in hand at that point. I do remember my own awkward adolescent years. I felt no sense of adjustment to the social environment, the context that I lived, my family, my friends. All of it seemed so foreign to me, and I also think about what it felt like a lack of preparation by all, by my teachers at school, by my friends, my sisters. I am a part of a very large family, right? They were not ready to prepare to help me deal with what's coming up, which is my adulthood. Long story short, I rushed through it. And as I am reading this book, I reflect upon what if I had a different context, different family, different social network, different organizing body to help me understand better. And I bet you can understand how hard it is. And I'm talking about today, 2022, right? What I call now post-pandemic world. But I bet you it is hard for you to imagine how do we face this whole new world, right? And as as a young adult, as a teenager or a preteen, and immersed in so many physical and emotional turmoil changes, and dealing with that immense thirst to break away from everything, right? It's embedded. It's the yin and yang. You want to be part, but you no longer want to be part. It is all actually very healthy to want to do this, but immersed in that unit, whatever that may be, and at the same time, you try to break away, and you want to break away from your family. You want to break away from your religion if you have one. You want to break away from the entire social foundation of what you were as a child. It is all part of life, struggles, changes, and fear of facing what I would call a heroic journey in front of us, right? If you think about Joseph Campbell's books, right, and his specific one, The Hero Journey, when you are not probably as prepared as you should be, and you fight with courage against all of our fears. And for the teenager that we're talking today, those fears is this life that is in front of us today. So I ask myself, is there a problem with this divine plan? What in the world are we trying to do? Well, not really. What you and me, what all parents and educators must remember is that teenagers don't have to experience being a teenager to rely on that, right? Everything is new as there are new opportunities. So with that, let's go ahead and move to the most difficult part of our discussion today. Yes, it is difficult. It is, in addition to all that's going on inside of you, there is also a question of your body from the context of this new dimension that we're calling here sexuality. I believe you and I can immediately react to the fact of how difficult this topic is, right? It is difficult for parents, it's difficult for educators, it's difficult for those specialists in the area. It is still a taboo to talk about sexuality, and especially taboo to talk about youth sexuality. Right. And let's think about if we let's just limit this discussion to the Western Hemisphere. So Western countries, and we're talking about North America, talk about South America, Latin America, as well as Europe. We can establish that the questions around sex are no longer prohibited, right? Censured or even unwelcome. As I say this to you, my mind goes back to so many books in the Victorian era where things were censored, right? Censored. Sorry for that. They were prohibited if people had certain books and they're caught reading them. Oh my goodness, you are disgraced. You're falling from what is called the pure ones. And we no longer have that. We have ample access to information, to space to talk about, yet we are still uncomfortable to discuss this topic of our teenager, right? Uh, we can talk here about why is it uncomfortable. Is it because you don't know yet if you're introducing something too early or too late? Are we bringing the right focus? Regardless of that, because of that, I'm going to call taboo light, right? This is light, but still ever present taboo subject. Misinformation may be a result of it. So if we go back to the book, Joanna describes in this chapter the awakening of sexuality during adolescence, and I love it. She gives us visual, very strong visual imagery. She says the awakening of sexuality as the bursting of a floodgate, right? So this placid lake that is with a dam, and all of a sudden it breaks and water, water flows with a lot of strength. And what she brings here to us is the idea that that energy, in this case water, in our case young teenage sexuality, right? It was held under control. You didn't see a problem, yet when unleashed, right, when it bursts, the forces can be quite immeasurable and uncontrollable, right? So think about water rushing in and actually damaging everything in its path. Trees are broken. Even if you have a boat, it may take with you with the water, and that's a little bit of what she brings to us. That is teenager sexuality, that uncontrollable energy. So when we talk about just a minute ago about the social taboo around the topic, earlier, right? Let's pretend that 100 years ago, maybe not, maybe at the time of my mother's coming of age, right? She was born in the 20s. So let's think in the 30s and 40s, pre World War. Lots of taboo. And at the time, especially with very strong standards of what a human female and male behavior, and this, of course, changes a little bit depending on where you are, your society that you inserted on, those behaviors were often hypocritical, and those behaviors were really, hints of they may be sexual behaviors, may be immoral, but only in as much as they became public. So sexuality is unavoidable. It is part of who we are. But because society in the taboo around your own sexuality was very strong, it's becoming less and less these days. But still, socially speaking, there is this sense, this veiled or not so veiled um, judgment of immorality for what it is indeed natural. Therefore, I'm going to hide it. You see the problem, right? And as we can think about, yes, our society is evolving. We are becoming increasingly free from those prejudices, hypocritical or not, those judgments that were part of, say, my grandmother, my mother, me, my daughter, right? But are we really? Well, let's pause to think about it. Are we really good today? How are we handling our own sexuality? How are we handling the awakening of our, collectively speaking, teenagers' sexuality? Are we doing this well? Joanna de Angelis in this book brings us to reflect upon what I call a counterpoint. Where her methodology is always point counterpoint, right? So while she's bringing about this sense of evolution in regards to this taboo, she brings us the counterpoint that yes, forbidding, right? We're now becoming freer, but forbidding a certain natural behavior would lead to that sense of immorality and hypocrisy. And she brings the point that we must consider that the opposite, the counterpoint to that is what I call it a free for all, right? If we have no discretion or sense of judgment, perhaps, those are my words. That is not the answer either. Surrendering, as she puts it, to the sexual appetites may lead, from one end, you hide them all. On the other hand, if we open those floodgates and we simply surrender with no sense of judgment, it will lead to, pathological behaviors, promiscuity, or even eccentric, odd behaviors regarding your own sexuality, right? So when we think about today, our society today, we are really at a crossroads regarding sex in general and regarding adolescent sexuality in particular. I hope you agree with that. What is the answer to these issues? The book calls one answer, one word, simple and difficult: education. Joanna calls it actually a healthy sexual education as the only option to lead to stability during adolescence and actually throughout the remainder of our reincarnation. Are you ready for this? And I look at myself upon myself and it says, if we're really honest to ourselves, we know that this is something that it's not new. I say, Marcia, aha, you're here to talk about adolescence and life, and you bring all those insights. We know about it. We've been talking about for a long time. Yes, yes, we have. And because we need to understand there are two different approaches to the matter. Number one, a very materialistic approach, right? Because, yes, we are sexual beings, sex is part of our physical lives. True. The other part, the other approach is a spiritual dimension to this debate, right? Sex and our own sexuality, they have deep, deep, deep implications to our souls. You understand that? Sex and sexuality have deep implications to our spirit. We are, as we know, more than a body. We're more than this aggregation, this amalgamation, this combination of cells and organs and neurons and nerves and systems, etc. We're more than that, right? Our physical body is one of various bodies that we have. And when we talk about our mortal soul, our spirit, we carry existential conflicts that actually precede this one life we live. When we deny, when we ignore the fact that we are an immortal spirit, and this is ignored by many. And what I'm talking about here is ignored by parents, by friends, by educators, by psychologists, and sexologists, specialists in the subject. If they look into sexuality with that only material lens, they are not really able to provide that healthy educational tools and knowledge to the teenager that needs it desperately. So, what does it mean, right? If you think about it, what does it mean to be an immortal soul? What does it mean to be an immortal soul living a material life as a teenager or as an adult? Well, our physical body reflects not only the genetic code from mom and dad, but it actually reflects ancestral habits. Yes, habits imprinted in us from previous experience, previous incarnations. And those habits, they lead to things that you didn't even know existed in you. So they lead to needs, to yearnings, as well as conflicts. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is, as we can understand all of that, the fact that those ancestral impulses are not always recognized, mostly not recognized, and not even controlled. When you are a teenager and you remember that floodgate of water with your sexuality is awakening, you also, as a teenager, maybe experience all those things that you brought from your past lives. And yes, there are emotional clashes. And yes, there are frustrations. And yes, there are so many questions in an age that you have an impulse to break away from all that was part of your foundation, your house, as I'm drawing in the air a little square, your universe until then. You want to break away, you want to experience, you want to be a pioneer, you want to visit the world, you want to explore. And there's all this that is there that you have to face that may lead to things that are not so easy. Our sexuality has complex mechanisms. They impact our mental, our emotional well-being. And some examples of these are psychological manifestations such as insecurities and fears. And so perhaps those experiences from our past lives have imprinted in our teenagers emotional patterns or even limitations in their body, organic limitations or deficiencies or overexcitement of their own libido. So all of this, you see what I'm getting at, right? We have our physical, we have our emotional, and yes, we have a psychological and spiritual dimension to this discussion at hand. So, from that perspective, is that we come back to the beginning. The education is really the tool to address all of those questions. Guidance and awareness, self awareness, and other awareness, because they will help guide us as we go through our adolescence. Think about it. Okay, I'm a parent, but I don't know how to do this. I am not equipped to help. Well, if I'm not, remember, your child's peers will, with or without information, with or without the right or wrong information, they will help, right? So we should expect that guidance will come and perhaps will be based on, oh, I don't know, opinions without any base in reality research, based on intellectual exercises that are completely immature or falsely guided, those exercises in what ifs that are really based on nothing concrete. They may be based on TV, on movies, YouTube, TikTok, I don't know. All there is available that may or may not be well researched in its content or even approach. It's all there, right? So, our biggest alert here, this is a caution to all of us, is simply to understand and be aware of who will be the entity, the channel, or the person to provide guidance to the very vulnerable and very confused person that is that teenager in front of you. You could say, well, I'm not equipped. I don't want my kid to be guided through all of this, so I am putting that person in a school, and I am transferring or outsourcing my responsibility for my youth sexual education to those educators, because I imagine, I assume they're better prepared than me. So again, another alert. Yes, it's good, but remember, those individuals are not your child's or your teenager's uh, mother, father, right? Those educators and even sexual experts, they may lead to the topic either too superficially, too irresponsibly, with discomfort. And I think in terms of teachers that are given the assignment to teach sexual education, and they themselves may not be totally prepared, it happens, right? Or if the topic is done with a well prepared person, they may only look from a material perspective and not all the dimensions. Remember the dimensions: physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, right? We really should look at all of those dimensions when we discuss and talk about sexuality. We, human beings, are not only sexual animals, we are also sentient beings, and we respond to all the animal instinctive stuff that we are, but we also, as such sentient, immortal spirits, we follow the guidance of our own conscience. And with that, we're going to move on to the next chapter. Wow, I said this is a lot, isn't it? So let's talk about the what I like the most about this first five chapters, which is adolescents and their plans for life. Much lighter, right? I love it. It's the third chapter of the book, and here we keep on the topic at bay. We're talking about adolescence from the viewpoint of spiritism, reincarnation, immortal souls, right? So, as such, the chapter introduces the idea that we adolescents have an existential project, an existential plan as immortal spirits. How about that? So, the first thing for us to be reminded is that, yeah, It's not my first rodeo. Me as a, I don't know, let's say a 13-year-old woman, a young woman, a teenager, I am not so young. I am, in fact, an immortal spirit, and I may be quite old as a spirit. So, as such, going back to what we're talking from that discussion on sexuality, I experience what? Guilt, anxiety, sadness, insecurity, fears that come from a life before this one, or many lives before this one. And with that, we must go back to the discussion of sexuality, I'm afraid, because we must be aware when we discuss about life plans, we must be aware that sexuality, and it's a critical discussion throughout the book, is an inner force, energy that is in constant development within our humanness, humanity of who we are, our human experience, right? So it's constant development. And because we have this quite long journey to where we are today from where we've been, we are revisiting a lot of baggage that we carry with us. And it is quite important. In fact, I would say it is an imperative that I imagine this person with a luggage, right? It can be a book bag, it can be a carry on, whatever. And that baggage, we go from incarnation to incarnation to incarnation, as perhaps from city to city to city. And as we stop and we go out and we open the baggage, and we can leave it all there, not really looking and just having to change clothes, whatever they are, or you can carefully unpack what is there, right? So, regardless, we have to remember that our luggage may be quite heavy, burdened with, perhaps the best word to use is the legacy of all that we've done. And by that, I mean all that we thought, consider, all of our words, all of our actions and inactions, right? That we bring from ancient time, our own ancient history, if you will. And those legacies, from a sexuality perspective, can express or be expressed our desires. Most importantly, they express our tendencies, and they express our different types of sexual manifestation. What I mean by that is the different types of sexual manifestation of our own sexuality, right? So we're going to kind of stop talking about this now, because all I wanted to say here in congruence to the book that we're reading is this: sexuality is a powerful force that affects everything, and it doesn't stop when I, oh, say I'm 18, I'm no longer a teenager, I'm a young adult, I don't have those. No, it continues to affect you and I in, our entire experience as a incarnate spirit. And they also, those, that powerful force also affect my sensations, my emotions, and everything that I go through as life is lived. So when we start to talk about, we shift to life plans, right? When we talk about life plans, goals, existential projects is the term that I really would like to focus here, right? A project for your entire existence. Um, they, love it, are mostly established. We're talking about this incarnation, right? Mostly reaffirmed and established during this period of our lives. Yes. So think about it. When we talk about I said I wasn't going to talk about, but I have to. Uh, a teenager going through physical changes, and there is this awakening of its own sexuality that affects your emotions, your feelings, and those emotions will directly impact your project, your plan, your existential project, right? So, what we become as we execute on those projects are directly linked in my emotional state. If we think about this from a material perspective, the social expectations, oh, there's so much. There is so much expectation that is given to us as we live, right? And we can talk about the material expression of those expectations. Yes, they're about comfort. Yes, they're about security. Yes, we talked about a happy life, right? But we fall prey to what defines that happy life. And from a material perspective, that happy life usually means, yes, social status. I need to be the best of the best. We live with this desire to really be the best, to shine, to shine our light bright, right? And when we do this, we see what's done in front of us from a social experience. So that may be, oh, I don't know, let me think about it. Amazing vacations, trips everywhere. Or high intellect. I can speak and talk about everything. I can write many books, or I can have the best house, or the best behaved with the best staff. I don't know. Those are the material manifestation of what I believe is a need that I have, which is a happy life, right? Unfortunately, I'm here and I'm the conduit of this. I am here today to remind you that we human beings, immortal spirits, I keep saying that, we are destined to different and much more challenging or higher goals than those that only looking from a material lens brings to us. Yes, yes. So the existential plan for us should include, oh, I don't know, my happy life is a life that I carry balance, that I carry idealism, that I carry harmony. So back to us now, right? This is all about our role and responsibility. How do us as parents and educators, how do we best prepare our youth and reconcile the so-called life plans? Well, I'm happy to say Joanna de Angelis has a call to action, an invitation, if you will, to all teenagers out there. She says, teenager, adolescents of this world, focus your goals, your life plans in the pursuit of knowledge. Love it. In exercising moral discipline. We can talk about the 3 hours just in that phrase, but we don't have that time today. She invites us to reflect upon your life and love it, the joys that you have through living that life. She invites us to find resilience and strength. We are strong enough and we can bounce back with our strength, our inner strength. She invites us to commit to face all our challenges. They're good. They strengthen us further. They help us acquire the actual psychological stability, right? to be stronger and better and happier. So she invites us, in conclusion, to live a life that will prepare you to overcome suffering, all the anguishes, all the pains, and more. So let's think about it. Um, the conflicts that our teenagers, our adolescents face, uh, they impact their sense of balance, right? And they impact exactly because once you don't have a well-defined life plan, right, you are vulnerable to be swayed to different directions, or even falling if your plans. Let's think about it, right? I don't know. I work in business, so I'm thinking. Uh, Once, about 10 years ago, I read the biography of Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, and I have an Apple device with me, and it's just so interesting because all the employees of Apple at that time, when they're introducing this device, they were all about the challenges, right? And the glass is too weak and gets scratched, and oh, we can name. And but he had a vision, he had a plan, and boy, he, not saying he did it well, but he stuck to those plans. So whenever challenge came in, he would go, glass that doesn't scratch, we don't have it, we need to make one, let me do this. So it's very interesting how, and I'm playing with this, I'm not saying the true version, but he, because he had a vision to bring the most qualitative product, he faced the challenge, he welcomed the challenge as it will make me a stronger designer, um, of this product. Not back to us. If we have something that we can envision, then all those challenges should be looked at as something that will make you achieve better, stronger. You're not as weak because now you face what could have come afterwards. So let's think about it. You teenager, you parent, you educator, right? Our younger generation may become prey to the pressures of social expectations. Oh, the expectation of what is in vogue right now. Is it certain weight for girls, certain weight for boys, a certain length of hair, a certain type of hair, a certain language or behavior? All of it that it defines even this next 6 months. Is that rapidly changing, right? I just read somewhere that a beautiful young artist that was quite beautiful, and she had tattoo all over her body, and she's like, done with it, let me go ahead and start the process of untattooing myself. And I thought to myself when I read that, oh, painful process, right? But you have to think it was what, the decision to tattoo her body was what was important to her earlier on. There are also the pressures of family, right? A family history, a family mythology or subculture. And they're also vulnerable to the pressure of their own inner quests. There's a lot of pressure, isn't it? It is my opinion that understanding those often opposing forces and pressures is really key to also understand what is essential for you, for me, for all of us to achieve our self realization. So I close my discussion today with this chapter specific. We have another 10 minutes, is for us to remember that everything right? Those who have everything that life has to offer only from a material point of view are often not as happy as we think they are. So, for you, for me, for us, for our teens, we must never forget that all existential projects must include a spiritual, emotional, and psychological component to it beyond the material one. All right, let's move on. And thank you for paying attention, but let's move on. Yeah, we're going to talk about the joys of being a parent of a teenager, right? Yet, let us not ever forget this. The best place for education is the home and your family. You teenager, when I was a teenager, as awkward and confused as I was, my home was the best conduit for my education. But we can pause here for just a second and ask, well, uh, who is my family? Fair to ask that? Yeah. Who's my family? Well, we can say your family is your father, your mother, your biological parents, and you say, well, adopted parents. Oh, your the those who are in the periphery of your parents. Anyways, your family are all those kindred spirits, incarnate and disincarnate spirits that gather around you. They and their focus is you, my friend. So, from a spiritual point of view, we can say that a family is a cell, a unit, and they all are there as a cell, as a set to help another spirit doing his or her incarnation. So the mission of that cell is, if you will, is to help address help enable that spirit to better address their past mistakes. And that includes all the pain they inflicted and they suffered to themselves and to others. So because of it, yeah, it's complicated, right? There are families on one hand that are wonderful. They live an experience of peace and harmony, and others not quite so much, right? Kindred souls united, the happy family. Kindred souls are united around this idealized manifestation of their plans, so they will work and function and impact themselves in the world quite different, right, than those kindred spirits who unite because we're going to solve a problem, and that problem is a conflict, and that conflict may be, I don't know, some sort of a context that is quite difficult, so difficult that yes, you come back as part of that familial unit, a new familiar unit, right? And you can think about it, us and anyone out there who have had an experience of a, my word here, dysfunctional, right? A family that's not so harmonious. Uh, and those who are harmonious, by the way, bickering, yes, competition, resentment. There's all that fertile ground for all of that. And some examples of the types of spirits that are put together in these families can be. I was married to someone and I betrayed that person, right? Or, excuse me, or my oh, former adversary, and it was such a adversarial relationship that this person was my sworn enemy, and we come back as a mother and child. Can you imagine that? The list goes on and on and on of types of situations that were come together in a new family unit to resolve those conflicts. So it is with that in mind that the spirits will come together side by side in order to reach a sense of forgiveness, to reach a sense of a new bounds of love in a new life. No one can actually escape the consequences of their own actions. So think about it. The family is like a laboratory, and the spiritual growth is my own spiritual growth is part of an experimentation that is done through the family lab. In some cases, if you think about it, when conflicts are resolved and emotions are somehow, for lack of a better word, distilled, purified, that a family, which at once upon a time had a lot of conflicts, reaches a state of balance, spiritual balance, I say. On the other case, unfortunately, instead of addressing, say, antagonism, negative feelings, I just don't like my sister or my brother, we say, right? That antagonism that exists, the family members, if they don't address that, they may actually reinforce those negative behaviors and feelings into their subconscious. So I just say that's not so successful existential project, and it complicates things to a great extent. But no matter what, it's important for us to believe we are born in the family we need to be born, not those we wish for, or even that I say I deserve better. No, we are born exactly where we should be. You and me, now or then, we're either influenced by the love and positive energies for the family that we're part of, or um, come and live through a difficult, sometimes even repulsive environment, a violence that contains violence, domestic violence, that contains all sorts of abusive behavior that may require specialized therapy. And it is sad, though, that today we see our youth as, this is how I see it, right? Often disorganized. And again, if I just pluck that word out, I can say we can talk another 3 hours about what does it mean. But I digress. Let's go back to disorganized, revolted, aggressive, uninterested, aloof, cynic, or depressed, right? So we have the gamut of emotions. And it is so easy when we look at those behaviors and manifestation, their feelings that, and I'm going to do air quotes, our lost teenagers may fall into a life that the only way to escape is either creating some sort of mechanism to escape, such as drugs, addiction of any sort, which may lead to violence, crime, and yes, we go back to sexuality, hypersexualized behavior. Um, in the midst of this, we also see staggering statistics around divorce and separations, and that just simply means that there is a growing number of, air quotes again, orphans, right? And when I say that, our teenager and other kids living with parents who are suffering themselves, who are lost themselves, and they're unable to be even concerned with what their children and teenagers are going through. But no matter the context, home is still the place that is best suited to build the character of that young spirit in this incarnation. So, when reaching for that emotional balance, that spirit can live either in an unhappy home and actually get ready to address their past mistakes. They're put in the hodgepodge of the hotspot, if you will, of what they need to go through to be able to get out of it. We are called, all of us, to be tender and to honor our family members, right? To honor our parents no matter what, to honor all of those, especially those who are not to in a position to be kind or loving to us. So it is, we've been at this for an hour. I'm going to close today with a brief discussion here of chapter 5, which is quite beautiful to me. It's a discussion of adolescents in their search for identity and idealism. And as we get to the end of our discussion today, I want to read this brief but beautiful message that says adolescence blossoms just like the rose opens itself to the sun, revealing a dormant intimacy which will softly aspire to life's demands by, oh, I want to cry here, by spreading its perfume and offering the pollen needed to fertilization and the birth of nature's wonderful and new expression. I find this beautiful. I find it inspiring. I hope you do too. And just remember, adolescence is indeed a time in our lives when life itself stirs within us. It actually sparkles. It triggers that process of, if you will, like the poetic view of a rose unveiling our natural tendencies, our aptitudes, our aspirations, our talent, our calling, our perfume. It's right now as a teenager that you will go through this. While this is awesome, we must understand the process of awakening may not always be a peaceful one, and I can see my mind's eye. I know Joanna talked about a floodgate that is open to me. It's actually a volcanic eruption, right? It's such pent up energy that blasts out and may cause a lot of pain and suffering and damages to everything and everyone around them. I still remember real briefly a cartoon about this young teenager. It was a little girl that was the sweetest person in the film. It was just cartoon, right? And when something triggered her and she wow turned into this monster. And if I think about it, it felt like that for me. And it should maybe feel like that for you, young person out there. So, in addition to this explosive energy, this type of awakening, there is another type that, if not more, if painful and difficult than the first one, which is the awakening that the inner suffering is so strong, it hurts myself. It is so strong that it hurts all around us. Phobias that have been stored in my paraspiritual body, right? All those things, all those existential conflicts that I bring with me, the guilt, it just bursts out with shyness and angst and pain, so much pain. So we must refer back as to why we, immortal spirits, must come back to another reincarnation and live a material life. The spirit reincarnates to confront the past, right? But also to forge a new future. And it's simple as that. So, adolescence, from an organic point of view, a material point of view, is when we experience a transformation of your body, of energies. Hormones will awaken our sexual impulses. It will also link to the stirring of that ideals, of our goals, of our identity. So, very realistically speaking, we have to say, as I close, we are some of all of our personalities in previous incarnations, and that process of awakening our identity is at a minimum complicated, and it's difficult for young incarnate spirits that are not yet mature in their own self-awareness. So close with this. It is not easy, but yet you are with the right person in your home that is taking care of you, or that you're taking care of, and you have the right attributes to be successful in this process. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for allowing me to go over this with you today. And I see you next week. Bye bye.